Matthew chapter 27. When morning came, the chief priests and elders of the people held a council to discuss putting Jesus to death. After binding him, they led him away and handed him over to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Upon seeing that Jesus was condemned, Judas, the one who had betrayed him, regretted his actions. He returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, admitting, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." They replied, "What is that to us? You see to it." Judas then threw the silver pieces into the temple and left, eventually hanging himself. The chief priests took the silver but decided it couldn't be placed in the treasury since it was the price paid for blood. Instead, they used it to buy the potter's field to serve as a burial place for foreigners. This field became known as the Field of Blood, a name it bears to this day. This purchase fulfilled the prophecy of Jeremiah. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the value set on him by the people of Israel, and used them to buy the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me. Jesus was brought before the governor, Pontius Pilate, who asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "You have said so." When he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he chose not to respond. Pilate said, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" But Jesus continued to remain silent, astonishing the governor. During the feast, it was customary for the governor to release one prisoner chosen by the people. At that time, they had a notable prisoner named Barabbas. Pilate, aware that the chief priests had handed Jesus over out of envy, asked the crowd, "Whom do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" Pilate's wife, troubled by a dream, sent a message, saying, "Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." However, the chief priests and elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and have Jesus put to death. Pilate asked, "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" The crowd replied, "Barabbas." Pilate inquired further, "What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" They all shouted, "Let him be crucified." Pilate pressed, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they cried out all the more, "Let him be crucified." Seeing that he could not prevail and that a tumult was brewing, Pilate took water, washed his hands before the multitude, and declared, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person. You see to it." The people responded, "His blood be on us and on our children." Pilate released Barabbas to them, but first, he had Jesus scourged. Then, he handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered the entire cohort around him. They stripped him and dressed him in a scarlet robe. Crafting a crown of thorns, they placed it on his head and a reed in his right hand. They knelt before him, mocking, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him, took the reed, and struck him on the head. After ridiculing him, they removed the scarlet robe, put his own clothes back on him, and led him away to be crucified. As they were leaving, they encountered a man from Cyrene named Simon, whom they compelled to carry Jesus' cross. Upon reaching a place called Golgotha, which means, place of a skull, they offered Jesus vinegar mixed with gall, but he refused to drink it. They crucified him and divided his garments, casting lots for them to fulfill the prophecy, "They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." The soldiers sat down and watched him. Above his head, they placed a sign that read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 thieves were also crucified alongside Jesus, one on the right and one on the left. Passers-by insulted him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Likewise, the chief priests, scribes, and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he is the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now if he will have him, for he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" Even the thieves crucified with him reviled him in the same manner. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness covered the land. Around the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some bystanders, upon hearing this, said, "This man is calling for Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran, took a sponge, filled it with vinegar, placed it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink. The rest said, "Let him be, let us see if Elijah will come to save him." Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. At that moment, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, the earth quaked, and rocks were split. The graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After Jesus' resurrection, they came out of their graves, entered the holy city, and appeared to many. The centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus, upon seeing the earthquake and all that had happened, were greatly afraid, exclaiming, "Truly this was the Son of God." Many women, including Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joses, watched from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him. As evening approached, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus, went to Pilate and requested Jesus' body. Pilate ordered the body to be given to Joseph. He wrapped it in clean linen cloth and placed it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out of rock. After rolling a great stone to the door of the tomb, he departed. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary remained, sitting opposite the sepulchre. The next day, following the preparation day, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered before Pilate, saying, "Sir, we remember that this deceiver said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' Therefore, command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say to the people, 'He has risen from the dead.' So the last deception will be worse than the first." Pilate replied, "You have a guard, go, make it as secure as you know how." They secured the tomb, sealing the stone and setting a guard in place.